Hello, my loves. Hello, hello, hello. My name is Dustina. This is Spiritually Boujee Astrology, and we're going to take a look at the major astrological transits for the month of March. However, before we get into any kind of recap or into anything at the look ahead, we need to talk about the specials for the month of March. There are two specials. There are two specials because one has a limitation to it. One has a cap, the other one, not so much. So, which one does not have the cap? I don't have to talk about this one as long, so I'm going to start with it. Through the month of March and the month of April, so this one's going to go on for 2 months, all of my one-on-one sessions are being discounted again. So if you want a 30-minute session with me, that's a $20 session. If you want a 1 hour session with me, astrological coaching, spiritual coaching, tarot card, let's look at these dates, let's look at this event, what the hell just happened in my life type of session is $35. If you listen to me for a while, I've done these sessions before. I've ran this special before. A lot of you people enjoy them. And again, because we are going into eclipse season and we are going into an eclipse season that includes a Mercury retrograde, I'm running that one through the eclipse timeline and through that Mercury retrograde timeline, because there's going to be some people that they're going to want one at the beginning, but then something's going to get hit partway through this timeline, and you're going to be like, I need more time, clarity, help. And I got you. I get it. Now, special number 2 is the one that has a limitation. Before I did this podcast, because there's so many people that you guys have asked me, like, where have we never heard of you before? Where have you been? I was a private astrologer. For most of my life, you didn't know I was intuitive unless you knew me. That's absolutely clear. I didn't tell everybody. And then whenever I did start doing astrology for more people, I was still a private astrologer. I didn't tell everybody. The only way you had a reading from me is if you were referred to me. I didn't publicize anything. That changed last year, ironically enough, March of 2023. It did. And I started doing this podcast. But until that point, my most popular thing that people did was the personalized horoscopes. In a personalized horoscope, what I do is I take parts of your natal chart, I indicate what has been activated, what it means for you, where it's leading you. I let you know what's being activated in the eclipse axis, whether we're in an eclipse season or not, because a lot of times we're not in eclipse season when I do these things, but in this go round, we are. And I let you know based off like these major astrological dates, kind of like what I'm going to cover in this episode, anyways, how they're impacting you against your natal chart. Again, these have been super popular for me in the past. This is used to be the only way that I actually did readings for people was through these types of horoscopes. And I know how impactful they can be and how important they can be. And I know a lot of people are going to like them, but I also know that they take a lot of time. And between what I have with the podcast, what I have in my normal one-on-one sessions, and how long I know these can take, because at minimum, they're about 2 hours a piece. Because again, I'm doing it against your natal chart. My quarterly and monthly transit personalized horoscopes are going on special. If you want a monthly, so a 1 month worth of personalized horoscope, that is going to be $35. If you're wanting a quarterly, 3 months worth of dates, that is $95. Both of those have been discounted heavily. Now, it is not based off of the day you purchase. It is based off the day that I get to record. It is a pre-recorded session. Most of these can take about a week to 2 weeks to turn around. So if you book with me on March 1st, I might not get to up to March 10th. My recording will be from March 10th to June 10th. If I don't record until the 20th, it's that to June 20th. If I don't get to you to April 1st for some reason, depending on how fast and all this gets booked out and everything, then it would be April 1st to July 1st. Whatever my recording date is the date I start from. So just to be clear, If you are wanting a personalized horoscope of all of the shit show transits that we're about to have, the Mercury retrograde, the eclipse season, the Jupiter-Uranus conjunction, Jupiter's entry into Gemini, these types of things, if you're wanting a personalized breakdown of how these upcoming transits are impacting you on an individual level, those are on special, but they are limited. So do not waste time on this. If you are a longtime client, I already know you guys are going to message me first. You're the first ones in my DMs going, okay, hey, my next quarterly, I want that. The quarterly limitation is 25. The month ahead limitation is going to be 30. The limitation is not because of price or anything like that, guys. It is because of time. Just to be absolutely clear. So this is something that you want. Do not waste time booking them. That's for sure. Because what I'll start doing at the beginning of each of these episodes is I'll let you guys know how many are left. And you'll see very quickly, they get sold out fast. So if you are wanting a personalized horoscope, book them as soon as you can. If you want a one-on-one session, those are on special from now through April, just because of how everything's going to go. It's going to be a lot of energy anyways, so I'm just, there it is. Moving forward. Okay. Now, there are a few things when it comes to the month of February that started to unfold that directly impact where we're going in March. And some of these things, especially in the last few days of February, directly unveiled, revealed, made clear, decided upon where we're going next, what's happening next, how things are moving forward now. Some of us, we had no clue how some of these things were going to unfold whenever it came to the beginning of February. We just had to trust the universe had our guide. They're at our side. They're at our back. They've got our back. They're pushing us forward. They're leading us. We just had to trust. Others, there's been some tests. There's been some frustration. There's been some shifts. And you didn't expect them. And everything since then has been like a long-term reaction. But some of those reactions are leading us into some very big things when it comes to the month of March. Now, there's a couple meditative rant videos that I did in February. One already covered parts of where we're going next with eclipse season, and eclipse season starts in March. And that was my meditative rant video on, well, both of them, the Pluto, Venus, Mars activations, as well as the Venus-Mars conjunction video. And those are specifically labeled as meditative rants because they didn't necessarily play into the normal weekly transits. That's why I call them meditative rants. They're specific for that. There will be other meditative rant videos that are going to come out in March where I give all the major dates for like the Mercury retrograde and stuff like that. But that'll come later. The ruler of this particular axis that we're in, the rulers are Venus and Mars. And the upcoming eclipse season that we're going into in the month of March is arguably the most important. And I have explained why in detail. That's what I'm saying. I'm citing those meditative rant videos for. And in the last 2 weeks of the month, Venus and Mars had a conjunction. They had some things come together. And the thing is about their conjunction is they came into a conjunction, an area of the sky where they had a conjunction once before, 2 years ago. But their conjunction was interrupted by Saturn, telling us at that moment, time is not on your side. You're not ready. This ain't it. Try again. Come back later. Well, babies, it's later. It's later. And again, the eclipse axis that we're going, the eclipse season that we're going into tied to this axis is arguably the most important. quick little recap as to why I keep saying that. In a normal 18-month time frame, we should have 3 full moons and 3 new moons. We are not having that in this axis. We're not. We have 2 new moons in Libra, 1 full moon in Libra. On the other side in Aries, they're all new moons. Last fall, we did have a full moon eclipse. However, it was an out of sign eclipse in the sign of Taurus. It was an out of sign eclipse closing out the old cycle, the old shit show. This coming fall, we will have an out of sign eclipse in the sign of Pisces that will activate the next axis, the next round of change. It will not be tied to this particular axis. So in this upcoming eclipse season, we have the one and only full moon that we have that belongs to this axis. And we will have the one and only new moon in Aries while the North Node is in Aries. This eclipse season is arguably the most important one in the entire 18-month axis. And certain things have been activated since the Venus-Mars conjunction. Now, when we get into this upcoming energy, both Venus and Mars will be making conjunctions to Saturn again, but now Saturn is in that mutable sign. We have transition. It is time for a transition. It is time for new things to begin. And there will be a lot of focus as to where we're shifting into new trajectories, new desires, new ambitions, new ways of doing things, new direction, new things, new chapters in our lives. For some people, that's going to include overcoming large rounds of fear. For other people, that is going into something head first with blind ambition. And if we do the blind ambition thing, remember, only so much of what we're about to do is going to stick. And again, go watch those Meditative Rant videos if you need more definition as to why I'm saying that. But a lot of the energy that we're going into this month is taking us directly into where we're going to experience and be a part of big long-term changes. We've been setting the stage for a while. The stage is set. The lights are on. We're in a final dress rehearsal, final prep, doing the makeup, however that needs to be worded to make it make sense in your head, going into this month. Now, again, we had a lot of transits playing out right at the very end of February. And one of those transits also included a triple conjunction between Mercury, the ruler of our logical brain, the sun, and Saturn, the ego and karma, desire and law, rules, responsibilities, boundaries. Some of us are going into this new month creating new rules for ourselves. Some of us are going into this new month stepping into new roles for ourselves. Some of us, the rules are being placed on other people. The awareness of who we are now and what our meaning is now is being more expressed to other people. So much of what has recently been uncovered for people at minimum was a year in the making. For other people, it was more like 2. For some, even longer. But a whole new awareness is taking us into the month of March. Now, the initial reaction to some of this awareness might have been a little quiet, confused. We needed time to process. Again, some people, whenever we had that moment happen, we didn't know how to do it at all. And it was just like a screaming possum. Ah, what the? No, what is that, Jimmy? Leave me alone. What is that? I don't like it. It sounds like how I get onto my dog. One of my dogs, he loves to, if you don't give him attention, he likes to attack your toes and lick your toes. And he does it because he knows he's going to get a reaction out of you. So that's how I get onto him. I'm like, stop licking my toes. I don't like it. Stop it. I love him though. We're going into an energy where our reactions are what's taking us forward. Our recent reactions, the recent uncovering, the recent discovery, the recent diagnosis. And I was clear about this too. The last few weeks of February, had the tendency to be very, very hard for our elders or people that were having issues with their GI. Some people, you stepped wrong and all of a sudden you got a broken foot, a screwed up arm, torn rotator cuff, having an issue with something in our body. And a lot of that had to do with the fact that Mercury does not do well in the sign of Pisces. The good news is Mercury is out of Pisces so fast. We started that energy the last little bit of February, and by March 10th, Mercury will be out of Pisces. And for anyone that's going through the issues tied to like affecting the systems, tied to the lymphatic system, suddenly all your feet are swelling, your body's puffing up a lot more, you're retaining all the water, you thought you'd just ate a salt lick, ate all the theater popcorn. Why am I just bloating? Mercury's in Pisces. But once we have Mercury go into Aries, it's very much a double-edged sword. And I do feel that way. Mercury in Pisces is screaming possum, but Mercury in Aries, that's pop-off season. If you have a natal Mercury in Aries, you already know what that feels like. You can't keep your mouth shut. You ain't got a filter. Pop off. Where did that come from? I don't know. But that's how I feel, damn it. It's a whole different level of righteous energy. That's how I feel about things. Mad. Yeah, I know. A lot more people will be popping off. They will be argumentative and they will be frustrated and frustrating. They'll suddenly have a whole lot of opinions about things they don't need to have opinions about. Very outspoken. And the longer it goes on, the more that outspokenness can turn into violence and frustration and argumentativeness and combativeness at a whole new level. My problem with that is the fact that usually Mercury in Aries would only last about 2.5 weeks, 3 weeks. No, 9 weeks. Now, I have meditated on Mercury in Aries for quite some time. And the reason I say it's a double-edged sword is because if people don't have a good outlet for what they need to focus their mind on, what they need to be producing, what they need to be creating, what they need to be working on, their drive and their momentum in a very specific direction, if they don't have a healthy outlet for this energy, that pop-off shit's real. However, if you don't have that energy, this can actually be a very big strategic restructuring energy. Because the one thing I do love about Aries placements is how pioneering they can be. Y'all are ingenuitive so much. I'll give you anything. I'm a Mars ruled person admiring another Mars ruled individual in that regard. Like, I can give some stuff to an Aries and they can really put some things together super fast. I take a little bit more time being a Scorpio placement. I'm like, I want to make sure it's going to work. Y'all, like, I don't care if it's ugly. It works. It ain't stupid if it works. It ain't stupid. I don't care if it looks like crap. You guys can figure some stuff out. There's a very ingenious part to Aries placements. And the one thing that I'm thinking about is creating new habits. Now, Aries is the first zodiac sign. It is the starting zodiac sign. And there's going to be a whole different level of mental motivation of Mercury and Aries. And if you were trying to create a whole new way of doing things, a whole new life habit, a whole new handle in something, Mercury in that mindset, if you use the energy strategically, and again, this is going to start on March 10th, if you really want to solidify, and this kind of goes to people like sales mentality, that you're going to understand this, like people that are in sales, if you're not having a good month, that means you weren't working hard enough 2 months ago. You didn't do the right lead sourcing. You weren't generating the right things a few months ago. Especially people that are in real estate, like you guys are going to understand what I'm talking about. Like the way that you source certain things, it takes 90 days to build a pipeline. Mercury will be in Aries for 9 weeks. It's not quite 90 days. But that can be a hellacious timeline to create a new habit, to restructure something, repurpose something, redo something in a mindful, strategic way, rebuild something. And I do mean build because of that pioneering aspect whenever it comes to Aries. If you want to completely engulf your mind in how you create a new way of doing things, you can start that once Mercury goes into Aries. Is it going to be all sunshine and rainbows? Hell no, because Mercury's going to have a retrograde here. However, again, we would be going over areas of the sky, finding where we didn't do something right the first time, and then correcting it after the retrograde's ending. So again, there can still be a very big strategy. And if you wanted to create some whole new habit in your daily life, in your personal life, in your workout routine, hellacious for workout routine, by the way, something new in regards to how you are working on something, if you were to start that March 10th, by the time Mercury left Aries in May, it would be your new norm. You wouldn't need the same level of motivation. It would become such an ingrained habit that it would become your new norm. And that's me telling you how to use the next 2 months worth of energy really strategically. However, the universe got jokes and not everybody's going to be able to do that. I recognize that. I'm sure you all understand that. Everybody's lived through a Mercury retrograde before. Something's going to get undone, but not all of it. Because the good thing is, the first few weeks of Mercury in Aries, it's not in shadow. So again, those habits that we start at the beginning can be very profound. Now, we end the month in eclipse season. And the thing about this upcoming eclipse season is each of the rulers of eclipse season, right around the time of us having our actual eclipses, will be making conjunctions to Saturn. Where before Saturn interrupted things with Venus and Mars, now with Saturn being in Jupiter's sign, in this mutable sign, in this changeable sign, this transitional sign, it is time for this transition. For some of us, this is going to be a transition in responsibilities, a transition in roles, a transition in how we do things, how we feel about things. Emotional transitions, hopeful, healing transitions. It can be used in a very strategic way. And adding the fact that the ruler of our logical mind is going to be in that pioneering Aries energy, it can be used strategically. However, again, this will be the start of eclipse season, is going to be the full moon in Libra, the one and only full moon we get in this 18-month axis. We got to make space before we can allow new things to come through. And I do feel like there will be a good portion of us that will be making space at the end of the month. If we are not making space per se, then we are healing something. We are relieving ourselves of something. We could be overcoming certain things. And again, it will be time for this type of energy. Other people, it won't be an ending. It will be a level up. It will be the next part of something. And I do find something very, very peculiar about the fact that the Libra full moon will take place right almost at the same degree as where the Aries non-eclipse full moon was last fall. Because if you listen to me last fall, I said for a lot of people, whatever's coming through in this Aries eclipse is a lot of people, not this Aries full moon, it wasn't an eclipse, this Aries full moon, whatever's coming through at this time, something we need to be aware of, but not everybody's ready for, not everybody's prepared for, not everybody's on board with it yet, but they will be. And in a lot of ways, the full moon is going to activate an area of the sky that is once deemed where we weren't ready for something. And now we are. We are ready for a whole new level of energy to take place. New desires, new beginnings, new cycles, new chapters. And considering this is a newly reborn Mars, because at the end of 2023, Mars had a rebirth, there's something very profound about this upcoming eclipse season. And I'll talk more about that Mars part whenever we get into April. But so much of March feeds into April. It's weird. It's a lot. It's not weird. It makes a lot of sense. But anyways, let's get into the transits. Okay. So when it comes to the month ahead forecast, just for those that are starting to listen to me for the very first time, I do not do this the way I do my weekly ones. My weekly ones are to break down everything as close as possible. This is just going to be the major transits. So I'll cover certain things, but not everything. It just kind of gives us a good awareness of the major dates of how some things are going to go. So between March 2nd and March 3rd, we're going to have Venus square Uranus. So we're starting this March 3rd, 7:30 a.m. Venus is square to Uranus. This is something that's meant to be exciting, out of the box, unexpected for a lot of people based off of those transits at the end of February. We are celebrating something. Some people we are celebrating with an actual aesthetic change. Aesthetic, change the hair, change the nail color, redo some repurpose some furniture. That was kind of my examples from that week ahead episode. We are changing something. And we're very, very excited about it. Now, the thing about Venus and Uranus is they're in mutual reception. Venus is in Uranus's sign, Uranus is in Venus's sign. So this is the peak of their mutual reception when these two square each other. Venus is pushing Uranus. Uranus is still at this 19-degree mark, so I'm still calling it newly direct. He's been direct since the end of January, but he's still in the same area of the sky. So Venus is really pushing for new levels of independence and new levels of excitement and new levels of technology and new levels of doing things. We got a little bit more of a breakout and breakthrough energy, but there's a lot of excitement whenever it comes to these first few days of the month. And for a lot of people, I feel like around the weekend, whenever we get into this March 2nd, 3rd timeframe, people are celebrating in a lot of ways. Now, it is a Uranus transit, so again, expect the unexpected, but I don't feel like this is a heavy expect the unexpected energy. I feel like all the heaviness or the blindsiding this type of thing, that would have happened earlier. This is more of like heartfelt expect the unexpected energy. Okay. Move this to the 8th because that's our next major transit. And that is going to be Mercury's conjunction to Neptune. Now, in my meditation, now this is going to happen a little bit later in the day, so I'm going to bump this a few hours to get it closer. In my meditation, whenever I was on this one, It's really interesting energy to me because the last time Mercury and Neptune had a conjunction, it was in a square to Mars. The sun was here. There was a whole lot of things that were coming to light that was just kind of flooding the senses. And there was a big amount of connection that was being made that was not being seen clearly. Now, all in all, this can be a really good date for creativity. This can be a really good date for manifestation. But at the same time, I don't like this date for like going to see a car salesman. Because the thing is, our mind can be so into some parts of certain things that we are not seeing all the dots. We're not connecting everything clearly. So we can be a little bit more susceptible to people. There can also be certain things that we agree to that we're agreeing to blindly. And there can be additional things that end up coming to light later based off of this agreement. And there is elements of this Mercury Neptune I do feel like can even play into the Mercury retrograde timeline, even though Mercury's not in shadow for this. But I'm making people aware, like, we can be looking at something that we're not clear on everything. We're not making a full move on everything. We're just trying to get our heads wrapped around something. But the thing is we're really not seeing everything clearly. The communication is not 100% clear. It is foggy mental energy. It'll be very, very crazy for some dream aspects. But it's one of those things that if you talk to the right person, they could sell you the snake oil this day. Everything can sound too good to be true. And the thing is, if you take that action too quickly, you go into this energy too quickly, you can regret it later. Not necessarily in this moment, but you can come to regret it later. So, not entirely clear mental energy, but it does lead to actions that are going to follow. The reason I say that is because immediately after this Mercury Neptune conjunction, I'm going to bump this by one day, we start Mars's square to Uranus. This is going to go exact on Mercury's last day in Pisces. We can be doing something or be deluded by something with the Mercury Neptune conjunction, have our senses kind of flooded by something, and then afterwards, like, our reaction to something is like, I'm never hanging out with you again. I'm never doing this with you again. I don't want to talk to you anymore. Like, this is a lot of shit I didn't need to deal with. Why would you do this to me? Why would you think that this is okay? And whatever happens in that Mercury Neptune, so I really don't like Mercury Neptune for like going out and drinking with somebody. I don't, because the level of action or reaction that will follow with Mars square Uranus can be volatile as hell. And considering Mars square Uranus will still be active when Mercury goes into Aries, these days all speak to one another. They seem to play into one another. So be aware of the timeline between March 8th through March 11th. These days feel like a trickle effect, chain effect, one thing after another, continuous situation type of energy. Now, Mercury's entry into Aries also includes this new moon in Pisces. I warned about this in the Virgo full moon. What I said was whatever gets activated in the Virgo full moon, we're not going to fully understand all the elements of it until we get to this new moon in Pisces. But there's something about the Virgo full moon to the new moon in Pisces that is directly tied to whatever is being discovered in Mercury's transit through Pisces. And once certain things become more aware, once certain things become more clear, once the certain action of Mars and Uranus kind of take shape, our reaction, our mental energy, our mental focus is going to shift once Mercury goes into Aries. And again, if you want to use this energy strategically, this is a damn good timeline to start that new habit, to build that new way of doing things, to start a whole new way of working on your pipeline. Like, you can use this energy strategically if you want to. Not everybody's going to be in a strategic mindset. Some people are going to be a requirement mindset. Like you did just get something from your doctor. And now they're like, yeah, if you don't start making these changes in your health for the long term, like you're not going to survive another year. You better get your head out of your ass. Okay. That type of thing. So there's something about these days that they all seem to be feeding together. They all seem to be one big thing. And I really, really do feel that way. And I wouldn't be surprised if a lot of people start to deal with that. Now, what is also interesting to me is that during this new moon in Pisces, Mars is still in the square to Uranus, but this new moon, I'm going to fast or rewind this by a few hours to perfect this better. This new moon is in a sextile to Uranus. So the last 3 new moons, this new moon in Pisces, aspecting Uranus. The new moon in Aquarius was squaring Uranus. The new moon in Capricorn was in a trine to Uranus. Each of the last 3 new moons making these aspects to Uranus tells me that there's been a continuous thing. So what happened during the last 2 new moons? Because they're playing into this one. They're playing into it right here. And if we were to go back and look at that new moon in Aquarius, like Venus was over here in Capricorn in the trine. So each time there's been another element and another planet involved when it has come to this Uranus stuff. So we're going to finally get something going, get something moving, and get something into a new direction. And once we get into the parts of the 10th and the 11th, we're reaching an arrival. So I'm still on March 10th. This is whenever Mercury is going to go into Aries. But when we get into the 11th, a couple hours later into the day, Venus, this is whenever she enters Pisces. For a lot of people, new situation, new individual, new connections, something new comes through with the new moon in Pisces, with Mercury going into Aries and Venus going into Pisces. We have new situations, new connections, new people, new. Okay. Now, the other thing about Venus going into Pisces is mutual reception. We just had mutual reception with Venus in Aquarius. She was in mutual reception with Uranus. Now she's in mutual reception with Jupiter. And I want to remind everybody about how the Jupiter retrograde ended. And that was back at the end of December. Venus went into Sagittarius and Jupiter retrograde ended. 5 degrees of Taurus. Venus made multiple squares to Jupiter in her retrograde. One of those squares was the 5 degrees of Taurus. The other 2 were 15 degrees of Taurus. And while Venus is in mutual reception with Jupiter, back in mutual reception, Jupiter will be ending the areas of the sky where he's already been, ending his march of shadow, his walk of shadow, and then finally going into new areas of the sky by the end of the month. And I do mean the very, very end. So once Venus goes into Pisces, understand that there can be elements of things that were disrupted during the Venus retrograde. So specifically during July, August, and September, that now are starting to come back around and getting healed and getting fixed and being overcome. If you had a falling out with certain people back at the late part of August, going into September, those people can come back. Those topics can come back. The role that that person once filled in your life can suddenly be getting filled. It might not have to do with that person at all. It might have to do with the new person that's going to be in this situation. There are elements to the direct timeline of 2 times. One, Jupiter's retrograde timeline, Jupiter-Venus retrograde. Venus retrograde ended September 3rd. Jupiter retrograde started September 4th. They were in a square to one another. Many people felt like at the end of August going into September, they were losing certain amounts of support. They were losing certain connections. Things were not going on their side anymore. Time to correct that. Timeline number 2, the Mercury retrograde that occurred during the spring eclipse season in 2023 included Mercury going from 5 to 15 degrees, the exact placement of where Jupiter's retrograde has been in Taurus. There are things that go back all the way to last May, that things that we weren't ready for, some shakeups that needed to be done that go into that prior eclipse season. So that would be April 19th to basically May, I would say May 19th. It's about a good month. I always count a good month. There are timelines that go back to then that are starting to get fixed also, that are starting to be overcome also. So this eclipse season that we're going into ties back to the Venus retrograde timeline and ties back to the spring eclipse of the new moon in Aries, where we had one activation, the first out of sign eclipse in Aries, and then the full moon in Scorpio. That time frame, it's a lot. And we start picking back up on that. We're going to be starting to heal those areas once Venus goes into Pisces. So moving this forward, we're going to enjoy this energy. Venus is actually exalted in Pisces. There's going to be a lot of things that are just kind of going our way. There's going to be elements where we start to really, again, start to feel things going a different way. But then we're going to get into the timeline between March 15th and March 17th. Around March 15th, certain things are going to start to feel like they're slowing down, not because of Mercury, but because the sun's going to start its conjunction to Neptune. We can always feel the sun-Neptune conjunction a few days before it actually perfects. That's why I'm saying, like, we're going to start to feel this on the 15th. And some people, we're going to start to like disconnect. We're not going to be able to clue into certain things. We're going to be starting to make certain decisions. We're going to make certain connections. We're going to make certain things that we are not seeing clearly. Here's the deal. When the sun-Neptune conjunction is going on, this is right around the time that Mercury enters shadow. So we can be also finding and uncovering certain things that tie back to the beginning of the month, whenever Mercury made its conjunction to Neptune. We can be doing the next round of something tied to the Mercury-Neptune conjunction. Again, this can be something creative. This can be something spiritual. This can be having to do with like a lie. Let's not go buy a bunch of things. Don't max out the credit card. I promise you that. Because some element of that will not be seen clearly, will get done incorrectly. There will be something that if we try to do something sooner than it needs to be done, that we might come to regret it later. But with the sun-Neptune conjunction, there are elements to the energy we are not seeing clearly. This goes exact earlier on March 17th. This is going to be a hellacious day whenever it comes to the Neptune transits for people that are like going out drinking for St. Patrick's Day, because y'all going to drink a little too much green beer. Be very susceptible to having a little too much green beer and a little too much fun. So again, keep your shit in order. Don't think that it's a good idea to drink and drive. Get that Uber. Trust me, you don't want that issue. But there can be something about this sun-Neptune conjunction that directly impacts the Mercury retrograde, because this is when Mercury is entering shadow. And you could have agreed to something back around March 8th that is now playing out around the 17th. And the human effect is around the 17th. That you didn't know at the time that you agreed to something, what it was going to amount to here, what kind of things were going to happen here. But this energy right here can be a flooding of the senses. And again, if you're not using this for a creative energy, and we go more in these other outlets, substance, vices, you can also be discovering lies, substance, and vice issues. The sun's conjunction to Neptune can be the discovery, and the discovery can be the recent lie or something that's gone back way further. That all kind of depends on your natal chart. But there can be something that gets revealed in the Sun-Neptune conjunction. Be aware that we are not seeing everything clearly, and part of what is being revealed around these few days, we are definitely not seeing clearly. We're not on the 100% of the page, and it directly impacts the Mercury retrograde, because this is where Mercury enters shadow on the 18th, when the sun is in the conjunction to Neptune. So this is where we could be having our stuff derailed from the strategic usage if we don't do our things appropriately. Okay. Mercury enters shadow on the 18th. March 20th is the start of Aries season. Hello, Aries season. Papa season has gotten a lot more intense. Now, the good thing is the sun is said to be exalted in the sign of Aries. It does very, very well. It's the first day of spring. The daylight is climbing. Everything is getting better from here. And what happens whenever we get to the start of Aries season? Jupiter's now at 15 degrees. This is important all the way past the eclipse, because this is where we start to really hit certain levels of timely karmic culminations over the next 5 to 6 days. And if you have something that's about to come to a close, you're going to know it before it happens. If you have something that we are starting to overcome, you might not know all of it, depending on what that exact situation is. But there's something very timely that to what starts to unfold right after the sun goes into Aries, because this is going to include one, Jupiter at this 15-degree mark, tying those few dates that I've already given you back before, tying up a nice tight little bow as to what happened at the end of the Venus retrograde, and put a nice tiny tight little bow around whatever got disheveled back in the Mercury retrograde that happened last April into May. There's a lot of things that are going to start to really come to light once the sun goes into Aries. Here's the sun in Aries. Jupiter's now at 15 degrees. The next day, the ruler of where we start eclipse season makes its conjunction to Saturn. We're going to be getting some type of solution tied to our elders. We're going to be having some type of blessing from them, from an authority figure. We're going to feel like it's time to do something that is very Venusian, again, very healing. Things that we wanted to do last summer, that we wanted to do last year, that it wasn't the right time to do them. And we're going to feel a difference in our senses. Venus's conjunction to Saturn, it is time for something. And remember, Venus is the ruler of the first eclipse. So be aware of what's starting to unfold right here. Be prepared that we're going to be doing some things that are going to be all continued flow. 17th, 18th, going into the 20th, the 21st, the 22nd. Speaking of the 22nd, what happens on that day? Well, that's when Mars is going to enter Pisces. Here you go. That next level of disruption. Venus and Mars just made a conjunction. They just had an agreement. They had something that they came to terms with. Some of these terms might have to do with some rethinking and some restructuring. Considering this is also when Mercury is starting to slow down. The moon's in Virgo. We can be starting to talk about some things that we need to redo, repurpose, restructure, that weren't quite clear before. Moving this along. When we get to the 25th, it's closer to the 2 a.m. mark. There we go. That's fine. Right after midnight, so Central Standard Time, March 25th, I've got this at 1:50 a.m. Central Standard Time. Here's the moon. Here's the sun. We are right at the eclipse. And again, This full moon eclipse in Libra is happening roughly at the same degree where we had the full moon in Aries last fall. The full moon that should have been an eclipse, but wasn't an eclipse because, again, we weren't ready for certain things. We hadn't made the space for certain things. Now, those things that we weren't aware of, that we weren't ready for last year, are suddenly being reactivated in this full moon eclipse. And for some people, this is going to be a culmination. This is going to be the final tie to something. Remember, I said that Jupiter is wrapping up the area of its shadow in Venus's sign. This is a full moon in Venus's sign. This can be tying something up that goes back to that Venus retrograde timeline. This can be leveling something up and bringing a whole new level of awareness, depending on where we were at during that Mercury retrograde last spring. But there are a multitude of timelines that culminate in these few days, in this energy. And again, karmically, in a lot of ways, it's time. It's time for this shift. It's time for this change. This is where we're going next. Okay. After the eclipse, Jupiter's off the 15-degree mark. For those few days, there's a big peak of a lot of culmination energy that is going to be tying back to a whole slew of things from before, things that we were not ready for. And now we're going to hit this peak of knowing we're ready, knowing we're in a better place, being willing to move some things forward. And Jupiter going into a new area of the sky is doing new things. Mars is now in Jupiter's sign. We are doing new things after the full moon. We're moving into a new direction. And all throughout the rest of the month, Mercury is slowing down. So here's the 26th. Mercury's at 24. Bump this a day. 25, 25. Hits 26 on the 29th. It's pretty much going real slow. And then April 1st, not at 1:50 in the morning. April Fool's Day. Yay! That's going to be the start of the Mercury retrograde. So again, understand we're going into an energy that is going to close out certain things, pull certain things back into perspective, and help them level up and shift them and adjust them. I don't know that everybody's going to do a full-on completion and cut off energy whenever it comes to that Venusian full moon. And if you are, you already know you're going that direction. Like, I don't think you're going to wake up that day and suddenly you're going to have a breakup. No, I think you're already in the process. And by then it's like, okay, you're moving out. The house just went under contract. Divorce is finalizing in a few weeks. We're done. Tying a nice little bow around something that's quite some time in the making. For a lot of other people, this is going to be a level up culmination energy that we're done with the old cycle. So some people, it's all going to be internal, an internalized energy that we're done with something and we're moving into a new direction and we're about to take new sets of actions. With Venus being in her mutual reception with Jupiter and in the exaltation, I really am enjoying Venus's energy in these mutual receptions, just to be clear. I think it's very, very helpful compared to what we were dealing with last fall and over the winter whenever it came to Venus's energy, because it's finally allowing for more space than just the purge, the deep levels of deep-seated purge. And I feel like a lot more people are going to start to feel that level of balance. And it really kind of depends on where the recent energies have been taking you. If the disruptions have been heavy and they have, up-seated part of your life, if it's just been upheaval, then you know that you need to get to a culmination point of upheaval. If the energy has been about alignment and healing and balance, then you know you're culminating into a whole new area of balance. It really kind of depends on where the energies have been pushing you recently. I don't think that full moon is going to be that much of a surprise to many people. Now, if you had certain fallings out with certain people back at the end of that, Venus retrograde, you suddenly felt like you lost certain amounts of support, you might be able to heal that. And what can happen in that full moon is going to be that level of healing. And we're done being separated, and we're overcoming. We're moving ahead. There's a whole new level of karmic balance. And the things that have been keeping us out of balance are meant to fall away. I love the energies as to where we're going, and I see a lot of promise. I've been really meditating on where this eclipse axis is going to take us for quite some time, and I've given you guys some heads up about a lot of that. But I also feel like there's going to be some things that happen in the month of March that are going to be a little bit blindsiding, especially when we start to get into those conjunctions to Neptune. Because it's going to fog our senses. It's going to cloud our judgment in many, many ways. And we're going to agree to some things that we shouldn't be agreeing to. And it will take us a few weeks to realize this was a bad idea. But not everything's going to be a bad idea. Some of the things that are going to start to come back and get healed are going to be magnanimous. If you've been separated from certain people for so long, there's a thing about separating to allow for space of personal growth. And after certain levels of personal growth, that distance makes the heart grow fonder. And the levels of reconnection that can be made can be profound. And they can be hopeful. And they can be healing. Take stock of who you fell out with last spring, where certain things fell apart last spring. Specifically, again, that late April going into May timeframe. Take stock from that timeframe. Go back through your photos, go back through your social media posts, look for the commonality there. Same thing with the late summer timeframe, specifically whenever we're talking about the last bit of August and those first 2 weeks of September. Go back through and take a look at where you were doing things. Go look at your calendar. Go look at your emails. Again, your photos. Go look at that time frame. Hell, even your bank statements. Go look at that. And look for where you were spending extra money. Think back to where, if you had your car in the shop for a long period of time, think back to what was going on. Because we're starting to round back into that energy. And not because of Venus, but because of Jupiter. And Jupiter is going to do a final level of correction and healing. And what starts to culminate from there, as Jupiter starts to get closer to Uranus, and that's not going to go exact until April, is we're going to have a whole new level of independence, a whole new level of excitement, a whole new level of technology and technological connections. We're going to be able to really see something exciting take shape. And Jupiter's conjunction Uranus is not a common transit. It doesn't happen once every 12 years. It happens closer to once every 14 to 15. The last time it occurred, it was in the very late degrees of Pisces and going into the first part of Aries. And those two with retrogrades, like there was a bit of back and forth. But it's been a while. And we need something exciting. And we need something out of the box. And we need certain types of innovation and growth. And I really like Jupiter and Uranus's conjunction whenever it comes to certain things tied to technology and science. Because I feel like we're meant to have new things in these areas too. And I'm not just talking about AI when I say that. One of the things I actually think about is like nuclear fusion and other areas of energy. There's historical reference why I think to that, and some of the things that happen with some of the other Uranus conjunctions while they've been in Taurus. But I also feel like there can be huge amounts of like exponential growth and change that lead to abundance. That again can be very hopeful energy towards future independence, shifts in our luck. We're in a trajectory. And if you pay attention to these transits as they unfold, you can start to see that unfolding in front of you. You can see that trajectory. Start taking note. Journal those transits that I break down in the weekly forecast and see how they're unfolding. If you don't want to do that, then book the the session with me, and then I'll do the major transits for you. So that way it'll help you, especially whenever it comes to your natal chart. But we're moving into really fun, exciting energy. We're moving into a timeline where we're going to feel whole new levels of change. And there will be people that are starting, and we're even in the midst of it now, they're starting a whole new cycle, a whole new way of doing things. And if you use the energy strategically, if you use it well, it can be profound. However, with Mercury and Aries, it can also be combative and argumentative and frustrating. And we will see these people that are being grabbed by the energy all throughout parts of March, and even more once we get into April, where all of a sudden they can't keep their freaking mouth shut. It's just on and on and on. And their reactiveness, it will continue to grow. And that's a pain in the ass. It really is. Because they're not allowing for the potential of this energy to work for them. They're just throwing temper tantrums. And that's how I feel about it. Be a lot of overgrown children throwing tantrums. I want my way. I don't really care. The universe doesn't care. The universe is going to do whatever it wants to do. The stars do whatever it wants to do. But we have the ability to use this energy wisely if we try. If we try. So I hope you can. I hope you're able to. I hope I can help. Anyways, I love and appreciate every single one of you. Pay attention to where we're going in the energy. Like I said, notate, go back and look at those old dates and look for the pictures, look in your calendars, look whatever, if you got a journal, whatever you use, if you use anything at all. At least most people have pictures on their phone. Most people will still have some level of social media posts. Like there's something that we can go back and look at. Very few people have absolutely nothing at all. So look for the patterns of where we were before and see where we're going next. But anyways, I'll talk to everybody very, very soon, and subscribe.